Hey guys, it's Daniel. Welcome back.
So, do you guys remember working on 5 Minutes Alone?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yes.
What was that like?
yeah. I was
Uh,
fucking
you
blast.
first, Sterling.
It all boils kind of together. It all blurs together. But no, I just absolutely loved that riff. The way that drum part was just to me was just it dictated that whole song. You know that dun dun ta, to just this hammering halftime beat
Mm-hmm.
over Dime's guitar riff. And I just remember hearing that at probably in the control room there at Dallas Sound Lab on 110 dB, just as loud as these gigantic Westlake studio speakers would go. First of all, we had to build these big stands for them out of cinder blocks in the
Really?
control room. Yes.
And
And
we
rig this thing
we
up.
were absolutely breaking every acoustic design.
Totally. Totally. And it,
Everything that was ever put out there is like, screw that.
yes, because that's the one thing I learned from that these guys that I will always treasure. One of the many things, but this one in particular of the whole philosophy of it's not the gear, it's the ear. And I learned how to make badass slamming music on cheap, broken, shitty gear, not name brand shit, nothing you would think would ever make an album. And that's how they lived their lives, because they started out with no money. They had to rig things together to make them work. And that's why we called Vinnie Riggs, because he was the master of putting things together that may not go together or making things work with scraps. And I just remember those speakers in that control room. Just we had that thing rocking and rolling, and it sounded amazing. And it was because they said, yeah, just do this, and we went and just did it, and it worked. I mean, that's what I remember about 5 Minutes Alone, was that just hearing it for the first time through those big ass speakers in the control room when we were all pretty lit, having a good time, happy, drunk, and just that riff, just knocking your hair back. And the other thing about 5 Minutes Alone was that I remember the day we were in the Phil had just put vocals on it.
Okay.
And Terry had given them, at the end of the day, that we would always make a cassette copy of whatever, and the guys would take it with them, listen to it on the way home on their little portable DAT machine, or their little cassettes or whatever in their cars. And the car was always the thing, and still the same to this day. The car is the if you can get it sounding good in the car, it's you're good. And he came back up the next day after the end of the night. That night we weren't quite to mixing yet, but we were finishing up all the recording. And he had taken that clip that you see in the home video 3 where he pulls up to that junior high and says, hey, y'all want to hear some new Pantera? And the kids go crazy, and he's playing 5 Minutes Alone, and that's that mosh pit out front of the school, and the teachers are freaking out, and they're on their walkie talkies and stuff, and they're not sure what to do. That was from 5 Minutes Alone, and the day after that song had all the parts on it, and it was complete. And him causing that mosh pit out front of that junior high that was right by his house in the neighborhood that he grew up in his whole life. Just, it was like, that's the power of music. That's the power of a really, really good piece of music. It moves you. It makes crazy shit happen. It makes emotions come out that you didn't know you had in there. And so that was a pretty pivotal moment for me too, seeing those kids go crazy. And this, of course, this was a couple of years before that got put in the actual home video. He videotaped everything.
Yeah.
So,
So, one of the things I wanted to ask you specifically about Dime and 5 Minutes Alone is the guitar solo. Like, Dime has so many iconic guitar solos, but there's something about the sound of that solo in 5 Minutes Alone which just jumps out at me. Like, I don't even know what it is technically, but it just, The sound of the guitar, I don't really recall any other Pantera song where I hear that sound. Do you guys remember recording the guitars for that particular song?
Were you in the room when he did that solo, Tim?
I don't know.
It
I
was
was
a
probably
pretty simple solo, and at that point, Vinnie was still recording all of Dime's guitar parts and solos. Terry would do it sometimes, but mostly it would be Vinnie. I remember Dime's Tech, Grady Champion, being there, and they were making sure that the tone was right because the tone is unique on that song. And I can guarantee you it was, all right, dude, go out there and just fry this thing out. And what he meant by that was he always talked about fry being on the top of his overall tone, and it's just that it's like a whole other realm of distortion, a whole other upper band of harmonic distortion on top of the distortion that he already has, and he called it fry. Go out there and put some extra fry on this, and so you could, and his pick was probably not his standard
nylon.
green Tortex pick that he
Okay.
used. This is actually one of his picks that he used.
Really?
I keep it in my studio.
That's so cool.
It wasn't that standard one. It was probably something else, like a piece of metal, like a metal guitar pick. And it made, along with the fry or the distortion pedal or whatever he had in front, was like a very abrasive
Little
thing.
edgier,
It's that
normal.
yeah, he was the master of doing things like that to make things be different, to make things sound different. And that being said, and then we probably had I remember from the mix we had some kind of just like reverb on it as well. So those two things culminating together that's what made that sound. And again, like I was playing, I have the multi tracks for Far Beyond Driven, and
That's
I was
cool.
playing them for a friend the other day, and they were amazed at how close to the finished product that the multi-tracks actually sound. It's like the mix wasn't a whole lot of extra added stuff. It was this,
That's
you
cool.
know, and we're like, yeah, that's how when you were doing something and you were committing it to analog tape, it wasn't fix it in the mix. It was get it right to tape, get it right first. Then we'll mix it, you know, then we'll see what the mix brings out. And so, yeah, that was, I do remember there was probably something like that going on in the control room that night, because he approached each solo like its own little separate song. And
That's really cool.
That makes
Yeah,
any
that's
sense.
really interesting. Would he kind of improv his solos, or would he write those out?
There was a couple of times he improv'd a solo, and we were like, "You're keeping that." It was that first take is golden thing. Every now and then there would be one like that. I remember one on Reinventing the Steel like that, and we were like, "Do not touch that." And then he would come back and just do like a little bit of like, he wouldn't change the part. He would just execute a note or two better, kind of thing. And we would be like, do not touch that. That is perfect. We're not, because there was one night I remember in particular where it was just like, hurry up. We're going to be late for last call, what we would call last call every night, you know, hitting the bar. And, he was just like, all right, let me put a solo on this real quick so we can listen to it on the way to the bar. And he whipped out this solo real quick, and it was like, that's staying on the album. That's not going anywhere. And we kept it,
cool.
Note for notes. That was on Reinventing Still. I don't remember which song. And then there was another song on Damage Plan called Moment of Truth. That is like a 2.5 minute long solo. That is all one take.
That's cool.
One take, one first shot. By the end of that solo, when he did that, I've got a whole other story about that particular night, but that is a one take solo. But most of the time he would have his solos worked out before he came into the studio, because he would have, we had the studio there at Dime's house, the main studio. And then he had his own little, what he called a 4-track studio upstairs in his house. And he would sit up there, and somewhere there's a closet full of 4-track cassettes of him working out solos.
That's really cool.
Yeah, I had to go through a bunch of stuff to find some multi tracks, and up in his closet, there's literally a closet where there's boxes and boxes of cassettes, and they're written on it. It says fucking hostile solo,
That's
solo one,
awesome.
fucking hostile solo two, shedding skin solo. All the stuff that he did, and he would sit up there and construct these and work on them, and then he would come in to record. Kind of away from the demo is going to end up being the album philosophy,
Gotcha.
but again, he treated these solos like his they were a song inside the song.
Hmm.
A lot of them were meticulously worked out, and he was looking for a certain thing. Some of them were only half worked out.
Hmm.
And then he would sit there, me and him would sit there for hours and he'd go, all right, what if I hit this with this augmented riff? Okay, what if I try it diminished? What do you think of that? What if I pick this up legato? And he was actually very musically.
That's cool.
A lot of people don't know this, but he was actually, I wouldn't say musically educated, but he was musically smart in that regard.
And I was going to add to that and also say extremely organized amongst the chaos.
Hmm.
Yes.
Extremely organized amongst the chaos. So what might appear to be one person's total, you got to be freaking kidding me, we're going about it this way, totally would make sense when you broke it down. Exactly what Sterling was just saying right there. If you were to go back and take a look at some of the notes that were probably written, cassettes that were done, one of my pet things with Dime was always he had that camera going 24/7, and it literally, I'm sure there are things that were caught that would have never, that were captured, that we would never think a second thought about, but it's there. It's totally there. There's absolutely, in my humble opinion, total genius amongst what might appear to be chaos going on.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
And then some of it was chaos for the sake of chaos. All right, let's do this. Let's plug in 10-foot pedals just to see what sound they'll make, and that's what we're going to roll with. Never to ever be touched or reduplicated ever again, even if you tried. Stuff that I would never even thought of. Crazy recording scenarios. Put a mic in the bathroom, and then we're going to compress that, and then we're going to run it back through a guitar speaker, and then mic that. It's just crazy stuff, dude. And you stuff that I even took notes on that I could never even duplicate today if I tried.
So Dime had a very producer savvy mindset. Would that be fair to say?
Absolutely. Him and Vinnie both. Dimes came from more of a musical side, and Vinnie's came from more of a technical side. And the two of those coming together was what helped that happen.
Which, by the way, Daniel, and I'm sure that you probably know this, but that is very, very rare to get technical and artist side where they can actually speak the same lingo and actually know what's going on. That made such a big, big difference to even those of us who were kind of, and I say this respectfully too, but those of us who were on the outside kind of looking in on their bubble for that period of time.
Yeah. That's really cool. So, I mean, you guys were talking a little bit earlier about the relationship between Dime and Vinnie creatively. Was one of them more the leader than the other, or were they kind of equal in that sense?
Totally equal.
Yeah.
Totally equal. No one dominated each other. They worked as very much symbiotically.